Welcome to the first of our more advanced tutorials. So, as I say in my channel introduction, in the first video of each week, we go into the very basics of BASIC. In the second video, we are looking at things at a slightly higher level. So those of you who already know BASIC and just want to know what to do with Yab can just watch those. So in this video, I just want to have a quick word about what is so special about Yab. And you have to understand that computer languages come in a couple of broad types. The first, the oldest, is the imperative language. Now this is the equivalent of shouting at your computer. Do this, now do that. And if that is the case, then do that, otherwise do this. Right? And the first thing that gets shouted gets done first, and the last thing that gets shouted gets done last. Now those languages are still around, but for the last 20 years, maybe longer, 30 years, the big buzzword has been object-oriented programming. And object-oriented languages came into being, well, they were there as a kind of theoretical construct, but they really came into their own when graphic user interfaces came into being. And so in a graphic user interface, the user can do anything at any time. And so the program has to be ready to interpret what the user is doing at any time. And so you get things like classes and inheritance and all those very, very complicated things that you'll have to know about if you ever want to write in C++. Now those are not the only two kinds of programming language. The other big one is the functional programming language, which I'm not going to talk about because that's really jumping down into the rabbit hole. So, Yab is an imperative language. It's a bunch of instructions that you give the computer. Now, let me tell you that I can put a window with a tab on the screen that is a little text editor. Very, very simple little text editor. And I can do that in 2 lines of code. I have written it. That's it. So let's run that program. There it is. Now this is incredibly primitive. I haven't even put in a way to exit properly. Okay, but as you can see, I can type text in there, but I can do a lot more. I can highlight this, and I can say copy. And I can say paste. I can say select all. What is happening here? Because I didn't program any of that in. I mean, do you see anywhere that I said I need a right-click menu and I need copy and paste. Now in a classical imperative language, all of that would have to be programmed in. Now you can put it in a library, you can, pull it in from somewhere else, but somewhere it has to be programmed. Where was it programmed? In my 2-line text editor. And the answer is, it's in the operating system. All the object orientation that makes this stuff possible is in Haiku itself. Now, okay, somebody's going to pipe up and say, well, it's not in the kernel, it's in this other part of Haiku. Yeah, I know, right? But for our purposes, we're running Yab on Haiku, and Haiku contains all this stuff that we are going to be able to access with an old-fashioned imperative language. So if I had to write all of this from scratch with this right-click menu, then you're looking at 200, 300, 400 lines of code, at least. And here we did it in 2. And this is, well, it's pretty unique. It's, just as if I was writing in C++ and I was using a library that somebody else wrote, that's thousands of lines of code, somebody had to write it. Well, somebody did write it in this case. It is the Haiku developers. Right? And so Yab makes it relatively easy for us to access object orientation without actually having to write in an object-oriented language. I mean, all it does is it opens a window and it pastes a text edit widget on top of it. That's all that this does. And everything else is in the operating system itself. That does mean that none of this is portable. If you write something in Yab, it'll run on Haiku. And it's a bit of a sore point with us Yab fanatics, but this is a native application. It doesn't use GTK, it doesn't use KDE or Qt, it doesn't use Java. It only uses what's available in Haiku. It doesn't use all of it. We don't have access to everything that's already in Haiku, but we've got access to a lot. And so that's why Yab is quite unique. I mean, yeah, there's some Apple script on macOS comes close, but it's clumsy compared to the ease with which you can just throw Windows onto the screen in Yab. And so that is what is so special about Yab. Okay, so our next video, we're going to go back to the basics, and it will be the rather boring topic of how do I install Yab. Well, yeah, we have to start somewhere. See you then.